Floodings hit Hais district in Hodeidah province and caused serious damage. Yemenis hope current Saudi Houthi talks in Riyadh bring an end to the 9-year conflict. Masam mining project announces clearance of 400,000 landmines in Yemen since inception in 2018. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English News with me, Shazab Dilbey. Medical and local sources in Hodeidah confirmed the death of 7 women and 1 man due to thunderbolts and flash floods which hit Hais district. Local sources said that many houses were destroyed in the area. This report has more details.
Yemen is going from one disaster to another. A countryside south of Hodeidah was exposed to 2 disasters within 1 week. Torrential rains have flooded citizens' homes and destroyed them completely, causing damage to property and lives. This has doubled the suffering of people, and their conditions became worse than before, as their properties were damaged for the second time and they had no other alternatives.
The floods destroyed our homes and properties. That's not the first time. Floods keep coming and no one cares enough to find a solution for us. Yesterday, an old man died here as a result of the floods that stormed the area. We call on the authorities, the government and the humanitarian organizations to intervene immediately and help us get through this hard time. We're suffering here a lot and there's nothing we can do about it.
The concerned parties and relief organizations are in a deep negligence over what happened and is happening to the village of Al-Qatna in the countryside, which has become vulnerable to floods and is threatened with drowning. As its people are on the list of the afflicted and forgotten, lacking the simplest basic needs, most notably food and shelter, which were washed away by the floods.
The floods stormed our homes and destroyed everything we have: our clothes, food supplies, furniture, and even walls. Everything was ruined. We stayed in the open till the mud absorbed the water. We have nowhere else to go, and there's no one to support or help us.
The people of Hais countryside were not able to bear these catastrophes and disasters that began to befall them from time to time. Their simple condition does not allow them to provide the minimum household needs that they lost as a result of the floods or even repairing the walls of their homes that were destroyed. That village is on the verge of collapse. It needs urgent intervention with food and shelter and the construction of barriers to protect the people from any upcoming floods in the future and to save them from these disasters.
Head of Presidential Council Rashad Al-Alimi arrived in New York to participate in the United Nations General Assembly's meetings. Al-Alimi is going to deliver a speech before the leaders and representatives of member states in the UN General Assembly about the Yemeni situation. Al-Alimi is also going to hold high-level discussions on the humanitarian and economic conditions in Yemen. The Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Jassim Al-Bidawi, praised the efforts of Saudi Arabia and Oman to find a peaceful solution in Yemen. He said the new round of negotiation talks in Riyadh is an important step towards achieving peace in Yemen. He expressed his aspiration for the negotiations and hoped that such talks would help establish a permanent and comprehensive solution to the Yemeni crisis. A delegation from the Houthi group arrived in Riyadh on Thursday to discuss a permanent ceasefire in Yemen. Observers hope that the current negotiations can make a breakthrough and bring an end to the 9-year conflict. This report has more details.
Billions of Yemenis are eagerly anticipating the outcome of Yemeni peace talks sponsored by the Saudi capital, amid international warnings about worsening humanitarian conditions, as 2/3 of the population needs assistance to survive. Yemeni employees and activists expressed their optimism about the results of consultations hosted by Riyadh, with the arrival of the Houthi delegation to complete discussions that began with the visit of the Saudi and Omani team to Sana'a last April. Yemeni circles believe that the efforts made by mediators from Saudi Arabia and the Sultanate of Oman are capable of achieving peace and overcoming obstacles that have hindered accords between the Yemeni parties to end the war and start comprehensive peace discussions. Millions of Yemenis are impatiently awaiting the verdict on the disbursement of employee salaries that were cut 7 years ago. Meanwhile, the United Nations Development Programme Office reiterated its warning that Yemen faces a plethora of environmental, financial, and social challenges, which have been exacerbated by years of conflict. He said that 2/3 of the population needs support to make ends meet, while millions face the risk of starvation. The program described the humanitarian situation in Yemen as absolutely horrific and called for immediate funding to prevent widespread famine, as half of the country's children under the age of 5 suffer from acute malnutrition, including 400,000 children who may lose their lives if there is no urgent intervention. It warned that the situation had worsened as a result of an alarming economic deterioration and severe disruption in commercial activity due to the ongoing conflict.
Chief of Staff Saghir bin Aziz confirmed that armed forces are fighting for peace. He pointed out that armed forces are to remain alongside the people and the nation's highest interests and shall not compromise national factors.
كنا من قبل ندرس في الخيام يعني في المسجد لأن الفصول ما كانت توافر بكثرة.
الفصول يعني قليلة مزدحمة وعدد النازحين يعني كثير كانوا.
لما بنوا المدرسة عمت الفرحة بعض الطلاب وبقى يقدروا يستوعبوا وبقى يقدروا يعني يفهموا درسهم مرتاحين.
وعملت على تماسك المجتمع المضيف مع النازحين وأصبحوا مخرجة التعليم ذات جودة عالية.
تخلصنا من الخيام ومن الدراسة خارج المدرسة، الآن كل الطلاب يدرسوا داخل المدرسة.
والله نفسية الطلاب كانوا مرتاحين لدرجة إنه زاد الإقبال الطلاب على المدرسة إقبال شديد.
يعني المدرسة توسعت، زيد فعلوا فصول جديدة.
The Houthi militia carried out funerals for a number of its members, including 2 senior commanders. The militia did not state the fronts where these soldiers were killed. Yet local sources confirmed the killing of those elements who took place in internal clashes in their group in the past 2 days. Massam Demining Project reported the removal of more than 1,000 explosive devices in the first half of this September. The total number of mines removed reached more than 400,000 mines since the inception of the project in mid-2018. This report has more details.
The ongoing civil war in Yemen and its concomitant humanitarian crisis have pushed millions into miseries. Thousands of Yemenis have been killed or injured in the 8-year conflict due to landmines, which continue to pose a serious threat to life and livelihood in the country. Landmines and other explosive devices killed or injured 1 child every 2 days in Yemen last year, the highest rate in the past 5 years, according to a humanitarian organization called Save the Children. To ensure stronger security measures and provide for the stability and rehabilitation of the Yemeni people, Saudi Arabia has launched a landmine clearance initiative called Project Massam in partnership with the Yemeni government. The main goal is to safely remove landmines, IEDs, and unexploded ordnances to ensure Yemenis can live safely again and are able to restart the local economy and rebuild their country. The project has destroyed about 414,000 explosive devices in Yemen since its launch in mid-2018 and continues to dismantle hundreds of landmines every month, with the estimated number of explosive devices and landmines in the region between 1 to 2 million. Hundreds of children are either killed or maimed every year due to landmines planted by the Iran-backed Houthi militia across Yemen, residential areas, farmlands, water resources, schools, and even medical centers. Project Massam's main initiative is to create a life without landmines for the Yemeni people. It aims to save limbs and lives and provide people in the war-torn country with shelter, safe access to schools, places of worship, and emergency health care. Other than demining, the Massam team also leads mine risk education sessions for civilians to educate villagers, farmers, school children, and elders about the risk of foreign objects and what to do when encountering a suspected landmine. In spite of repeated and continued demining operations, it's nearly impossible to calculate how many landmines and explosive devices remain in Yemen due to the issue of replanting. The faltering ceasefire in the country has also contributed to a resurgence in landmine planting in Yemen.
The International Organization for Migration recorded an increase in displacement in Yemen in the second week of September. The organization said the total number of new displacement cases from the beginning of the year amounted to about 26,000 people. Coming next in the news. Teachers in Aden protest against government measures to transfer salaries to commercial banks.
اسمي سنة وأنا رسامة من صنعاء. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 2 سنين. كنت أخاف أوقات بس الرسم يسعدني. حلمي أن أكون رسامة عالمية. أمنيتي صعود سلم النجاح وأحقق كل أحلامي. أنا سالم من حضرموت وأنا أحب التصوير. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 6 سنوات. أحب تصوير كل جميل في بلدي.
Welcome back. Many of the employees in many government facilities in Lahj carried out a protest to demand their salaries. The employees raised signs denouncing the inaction of local authorities to pay their financial dues. They also stressed that they will not accept such measures that take away their rights. In Aden, teachers continuing their protests against the government measures to transfer their salaries to commercial banks. This report has more details.
Dozens of teachers in Aden announced their strike to protest the decision of the Minister of Finance to transfer their salaries through commercial banks. This week, the government unveiled plans to pay public sector salaries through private banks, citing the opportunity for greater efficiency and transparency in disbursement, which would help it limit corruption. The initiative has been criticized by a number of unions which have threatened to strike or already are in strike.
We call on the Ministers of Civil Service and Finance to release teacher salaries. Education and healthcare are among the most pivotal sectors. We've been queuing for 3 days on top of our work shifts to retrieve our wages. The circumstances surrounding the agreement signed by the Finance Minister are incredibly ambiguous. We don't know why this transfer is happening.
We have grown tired of the measures surrounding our salaries. Today we're protesting against the listing of public employee salaries under the 4th item. Teachers should be held in higher regard in society.
Those teachers spend their lives raising generations and enlightening minds. Today, their livelihoods face an imminent threat.
For many years, teachers have gone unappreciated. They strive to disseminate a message of optimism and discipline in children children in order to safeguard the country, but most of them cannot afford travel to and from school. In the current economic climate, teachers barely make enough to support their families.
Teachers and educators carried out a protest in front of the Ministry of Finance building, demanding that the minister retract his decision. They also demanded the rights to bonuses, annual settlements, and health insurance.
The Houthi militia gives privileges to their affiliate fighters who come from Sada. Those privileges are granted on national grounds. This report has more details.
The Houthi group in Yemen rewarded the families of its dead who came from Sada Governorate by granting them lands that they have seized in the western highlands of the capital Sana'a, while ignoring the families of those killed from other governorates. As for the group's generous distribution of funds and various food and medical aid to its followers, excluding other poor and needy people in areas under its control, it recently allocated more than $3 million to them. The group announced through what is called the Commission for the Care of Families of the Dead the distribution of monthly cash bail to 55,809 relatives of its dead and missing people in all the governorates under its control. Informed sources in Sana'a say that most of the families of the group's dead, who benefit from all the privileges, are members of the Houthi group from Sada Governorate. The sources indicate that there is discontent among these loyal to the group against the backdrop of favoring those affiliated with Sada and belonging to the Houthi group, and neglecting the families of the dead tribesmen who sacrificed their lives in order to defend the group's benefits. The sources confirm the presence of escalating complaints among the families and children of those killed by the group recently, especially in Sana'a and its countryside, in light of their marginalization and neglect of their miserable living conditions and the monopolization of a limited category of the group's members from the levies and royalties imposed on the Yemenis through illegal means. The group had previously estimated the number of its dead at about 90,000 people during its announcement of the activities of its institutions to provide aid and financial and food assistance to the families of the dead.
The Japanese government agreed to provide 2 new grants to Yemen worth $4 million. The Yemeni ambassador in Tokyo said the first grant, amounting to $1 million, is allocated to support preventing oil leak from Safer tanker. The second grant, amounting to $3 million, is allocated to support the rehabilitation of roads in the city of Aden. The Yemeni Red Crescent branch in Raima confirmed its inability to provide the necessary response for any emergency. The Red Crescent reported the looting of its budget and allocations by influential Houthis for more than a year. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Floodings hit Hais district in Hodeidah province and caused serious damage. Yemenis hope current Saudi Houthi talks in Riyadh bring an end to the 9-year conflict. The Samda mining project announces clearance of 400,000 landmines in Yemen since inception in 2018. This is the end of the news. It was Shazad Al-Ba'i. Thank you for watching.